In Westminster Hall, oak beams have supported 600 tons for over 600 years. They watched the trial of Guy Fawkes. They survived the Blitz. They stand today as strong as the day medieval carpenters raised them. Meanwhile, the deck your neighbor built 12 years ago is already rotting through. This is not luck. This is knowledge that was deliberately abandoned, and by the end of this video, you will discover why it's still standing and how you can build one yourself. Hi, I am Greg, and welcome to Building Grounds. Subscribe and hit the bell for more uncovering building secrets they never taught you. Let us start with the evidence. In Essex stands St. Andrew Church in Greenstead. Its oak walls were erected in 1060 CE, 965 years of continuous service, not preserved in a museum. A working church where people still gather every Sunday surrounded by timber that was growing when the Vikings ruled England. In Japan, Horyuji Temple's central pillars are hinoki cypress, cut in 607 CE, 1400 years old. Engineers from Kyoto University have tested these columns. They retain 90% of their original strength. Now consider your local home improvement store. That pressure-treated pine carries a warranty of 15 to 25 years. We have gone backwards by a factor of 40 to 1. In 2019, researchers at ETH Zurich conducted compression tests on medieval timber samples compared to modern plantation lumber of the same species. The medieval wood showed 340% greater compression strength. Same tree species, radically different material properties. Medieval English oak averages 720 kilograms per cubic meter in density. Modern plantation oak measures 560 kilograms per cubic meter, 22% less dense, 22% weaker. Under the microscope, the difference becomes visible. Medieval timber shows 12 to 20 growth rings per inch. Modern plantation wood shows 4 to 8. Faster growth, less dense cellular structure, more void space where moisture and decay organisms can take hold. These medieval builders understood wood as a living material with properties that could be optimized or destroyed depending on how it was harvested and prepared. That knowledge was abandoned for profit. So what exactly did medieval carpenters know that we forgot? The first secret sounds like superstition until you understand the science. Medieval guild records mandated that structural timber be cut only during the waning moon in winter months. Japanese temple builders still practice this at the Ice Grand Shrine, which has been rebuilt using identical methods every 20 years for 1,300 years. Why does this matter? Because sugars in summer harvested wood feed the fungi and insects that cause decay. Researchers at the Forest Products Laboratory tested this claim. Timber harvested in winter months showed 23% lower decay rates. The second secret concerns which part of the tree medieval builders actually used. The outer rings are sapwood, living tissue full of starches that insects and fungi love. The inner core is heartwood, dead tissue where the tree has deposited natural preservatives. Medieval guild regulations specified minimum tree ages of 80 to 150 years. An 80-year-old oak might have a heartwood core 18 inches in diameter. Modern plantation forestry operates on 25 to 40-year rotations. A 30-year-old pine has barely begun to develop heartwood. The third secret involves matching wood species to structural function. Oak was the primary choice for posts and beams. Sweet chestnut was used for ground contact because its tannin concentration exceeds even oak. Elm was used for watermill components because elm uniquely resists rot when permanently submerged. Modern construction treats all lumber as interchangeable commodity. A system of knowledge that took 5 centuries to develop was erased in 50 years. The fourth secret concerns time. The medieval standard required a minimum of 3 years of air drying. The timber for HMS Victory was cut in 1746, and the ship was not laid down until 1759. 13 years of patient drying. During air drying, moisture equalizes slowly, cell walls stabilize gradually, internal stresses dissipate naturally. Modern kiln drying achieves target moisture content in 2 to 4 weeks at 160 degrees Fahrenheit. The process creates internal stresses that manifest as warping, checking, and twisting. The fifth secret involves joinery. Medieval builders used mortise and tannin joints held by wooden pegs, no metal fasteners. They understood that wood and metal respond differently to moisture and temperature. When you bolt these materials together, the bolt holes elongate, the wood crushes, the joint loosens. A properly cut mortise and tannin joint actually tightens under load. The oak pegs swell when moisture increases. This is engineering designed to work with the material rather than against it. So why did we abandon this knowledge? Follow the money. Steam-powered sawmills in the 1840s could process logs in hours that previously took days. Speed required abandoning the selection criteria that made medieval construction possible. The real transformation came after 1945. Post-war housing booms demanded lumber volumes that natural forests could not supply. Plantation forestry emerged. Monoculture stands operating on 25 to 40-year rotations. These trees never developed the characteristics that made medieval timber exceptional. Here is the dark irony. This inferior wood quality created a new market. Pressure treatment became standard. The wood treatment industry grew into a $4.7 billion global market, an entire industry profiting from selling solutions to a problem that industrial forestry created. The knowledge erasure was systematic. By the 1950s, timber selection had been removed from architecture curricula. Carpenters were trained to work with whatever the lumberyard provided, but the knowledge survived in small communities. In Japan, the Miyadaiku, temple carpenters, maintain an unbroken lineage stretching back to the 7th century. In France, the Compagnons du Devoir maintain a guild system surviving since medieval times. In America, the Timber Framers Guild was founded in 1984. Academic researchers are validating what these traditional builders never forgot. Programs at ETH Zurich and Kyoto University are studying historical construction methods. You can apply this knowledge immediately. Seek out small sawmills that cut from mature natural stands. Ask about harvest season and seasoning duration. Specify heartwood only. Yes, your material costs will increase by 15 to 25%. Your building will outlast you by generations. Learn to read wood quality. Count growth rings. 12 or more rings per inch indicates slow growth. Look for color contrast between darker heartwood and lighter sapwood. Lift the board. Heavier means denser. If you source green wood, stack and sticker it for air drying. A minimum of 1 year of drying per inch of thickness. Target 12 to 15% moisture for interior use. Consider joinery over fasteners. A basic mortise and tenon joint is achievable with hand tools. When metal fasteners are necessary, use stainless steel. Seal all end grain. Design every exterior connection to shed water. Match material to the purpose. White oak for exterior work. Black locust for exceptional decay resistance. Cedar for non-structural exterior applications. The builders who raised Westminster Hall in 1393 did not know they were constructing something that would stand for over 6 centuries. They simply built correctly. The industrial model treats buildings as disposable products with 20-year design lives. The medieval model treated buildings as legacy, structures that would shelter the builder's grandchildren and their grandchildren in turn. That choice is available to you now. Every structure you build with properly selected timber becomes a quiet argument against the system that buried this wisdom. In 50 years, when the pressure-treated lumber has returned to the earth and your oak beams have only grown harder and stronger and more beautiful with age, the verdict will be final. Begin by studying the fundamental difference between green wood and seasoned wood. Green wood is freshly cut timber that still contains its natural moisture, making it significantly easier to work with hand tools. Medieval craftsmen relied almost exclusively on green wood because it could be split, shaped, and carved with far less effort. Acquire freshly felled wood from a local tree service or sawmill, and work with this wood immediately to experience how the fibers separate cleanly along the grain. Practice riving, which involves splitting wood along its natural grain lines using a froe and mallet. This method produces stronger components because it follows the wood's natural structure. Once you understand green wood properties, focus on learning which species suit which purposes. Oak, was the premier timber for medieval construction due to its strength, durability, and workability when green. Study how medieval builders selected trees by their growth patterns. Learn to read a standing tree for defects like spiral grain, frost cracks, or rot by examining the bark patterns. Read historical sources like Joseph Moxon's Mechanic Exercises to understand how period craftsmen thought about wood selection. Acquire and learn to use the core hand tools of medieval timber work. Start with a felling axe, a broad axe for hewing flat surfaces, and a side axe for more refined shaping. Add a draw knife for shaving surfaces smooth, a froe and mallet for riving, and an adze for hollowing. Practice hewing a round log into a square beam. This skill alone will teach you enormous amounts about reading grain and working efficiently with green timber. Add boring tools like a brace and bit for creating mortise holes and chisels for cleaning up joints. Join a traditional woodworking group or attend timber framing workshops. Study the joint types that hold timber frames together without metal fasteners. The mortise and tenon is the fundamental joint where a rectangular hole receives a projecting tongue from another timber, secured with a wooden peg. Practice cutting mortises with an auger to remove waste and chisels to clean the walls square. Progress to more complex joints like the dovetail and the scarf joint, which joins two timbers end to end. Study surviving medieval buildings through books and measured drawings. Master the layout system that medieval framers used to transfer measurements. The traditional method involves scribing using dividers and straight edges to transfer exact dimensions from one timber to its mating piece. Learn to use a framing square and the geometric principles that allow you to calculate rafter lengths using simple proportions. Practice laying out a simple bent consisting of posts, a tie beam, and rafters. Start small by building a simple sawbuck using timber frame joinery before attempting a full building frame. Deepen your knowledge by studying the historical and regional variations in timber framing traditions. English medieval framing differs from French, German, and Scandinavian traditions. Examine how box frame construction, cruck framing, and aisled hall construction each solve the problem of creating enclosed space. Study how timber frames integrated with other building systems, including foundation work and wall infill methods like wattle and daub. Apply your growing knowledge through increasingly ambitious projects. Begin with small, functional items, such as stools or benches that use mortise and tenon joinery. Progress to a simple timber frame structure, for example, a garden gate. Then attempt a more complex project like a small outbuilding using full timber frame construction. Consider attending a formal timber framing course where you can participate in raising an actual building frame. Finally, join communities of practice through guilds and local groups where you can continue learning from others who share your interest in this enduring craft tradition. If this changed how you think about construction, subscribe to Building Grounds with Greg. Please watch the next video appearing on your screen right now.